Good afternoon, Nzinga. Thanks very much. Yes, well, the all-share index is taking its cue from other markets. It's up in positive territory. On Friday, it lost 1.3%, pretty much in line with other markets, although your Asian markets did suffer a lot more. So things are looking good today, but for how long? As you mentioned, US inflation data coming out tomorrow. People very anxious about that number. If the number comes out, if it's perceived to be too high, people will begin to panic about inflation, interest rates, and therefore we could see yet another sell-off. Volatility is still expected to be the order of the day going forward, but today seems like a good day. The local currency has firmed relative to where it stood on Friday. Obviously, all eyes on that ANC NEC meeting, what will happen in terms of President Jacob's future. People are looking for a definitive answer, as promises have been given that we're going to get some clarity today. Markets waiting for that, but there doesn't seem to be any knee-jerk reaction, and so we see the rand trading below 12 against the US dollar. Let's take a look at the indicators. Well, I'm joined by Bright Kumalo. He's from Vestat. Thanks for joining us, sir, as always.
Yeah, lovely to be here, Nombu.
Good stuff. Global markets appear to be normalizing for today, but for how long? And of course, I mentioned that inflation print coming out of the United States. Are we far from the volatility?
Volatility is good for the markets. Trees don't grow to the sky, right? And looking at like you're saying, the US futures, I saw them red, so they are normalizing somewhat, but the US is doing its own thing again. But it's good to see that rand is actually now below 12 again at 11 rand 93 to the dollar, which is stronger. And we still wait for that meeting, the NEC meeting today. So, all eyes on that.
Indeed. Now, with the corrections that we've seen on global markets, there's always been this debate about asset managers like yourselves. Do you rather pay someone a little bit extra to manage your funds and stock pick for you, or do you just shove your money into a tracking type of Satrix type of investment and hope for the best? But now we saw that ETFs, that is exchange traded funds, were sold off massively last week as a result of this global sell-off. So does this suddenly make guys like you sexier? That is, people who stock pick and who get paid just a little bit extra for their expertise, or are we going to see ETFs become popular again once there's normalization?
The ETF versus, or the index type product versus, active, I think it depends on the person. It's a very hard argument to make. Or maybe there's a happy medium where you have, a certain number of ETFs and you have a few people that you trust with your money, and then you give them, you allocate them some of that capital to them. In terms of being sexy, thank you very much for the compliment. But generally speaking, because active managers can actually make a decision prior to such a big sell-off, or maybe they take a view that the sell-off will carry on for long and then they sell, you might save a few points there, and that goes a long way in terms of compounding your cash into the future. So there is a conversation for them during volatile markets, and also some of them can actually take the opposite and go short on a stock instead of actually being long. So that's another thing, whereas there's very few ETFs that can actually execute that. But the interesting one in terms of ETF, the one that actually caught my attention is the one that shorts volatility. And last week we saw that actually the one by a Swiss bank, I forgot which one, it went to zero basically, because in the past 12 years you've had this ETF and you're just shorting volatility. Volatility has been coming down drastically in the past 12 years, but recently volatility has become so much that, because there was a clause on that product, they decided, Credit Suisse now, they decided, we're going to cancel this thing because it's going to zero basically. So you might have made money, and then if you sold, yes, you made money on your ETF, but you couldn't have made money if you have been long for 12 years and it all went to zero now.
And then given the corrections that we're seeing, I mean, in your capacity as a portfolio manager, have you seen any opportunities in terms of stocks that were a bit expensive before, but you're looking to buy now or have bought already?
Yes, I mean, the one that stands out in that argument is Naspers. I mean, there's lots of noise. You know, in the short term, there'll always be noise, but it went from 3,900 rands to where it is today. I think it's definitely a bargain. I'll be buying more.
Where is it now?
I think it's about 2,900. It's shaved off a lot. So yes, I'd definitely be buying that. Other companies that, you know, another one was Aspen. You remember there was negative news that those short sellers might be coming after them, and then didn't actually come after them. Though the share price has gone down a lot, it only recovered, you know, a bit. And then this market gyrations in the past week happened also. So that's also looking very cheap historically. So I mean, there are opportunities out there. Even offshore, there are still opportunities. You just have to look deeply. Yeah.
Are there any conversations happening at the desk where you work around the ANC NEC meeting, and what sort of impact it's having on the rand, if at all?
Yes, I think we spent a whole of about 20 seconds on the argument. It was like, okay, NEC meetings, like, oh, it's happening again. Is he gonna go? No, move on. So that's the kind of conversation we had.
All right, moving swiftly then. I see that Christo Wiese has sold off his stake in Steinhoff. He used to own about 21% of it, and now it's down to 6%. Now, we know that Steinhoff is having problems, but by virtue of the fact that he hasn't sold out completely, does that signal that one should still be a little bit confident, given that he's still got his big toe in there, or his selling out like that, is that a negative thing? What's your prognosis for Steinhoff?
I don't know. I think Steinhoff is in deep trouble, to just say the least, because we still don't know the quantum of what's going on there. What's the whole, and the fact that the local business Star is not affected. You saw that company actually recovering, coming back to where it was when it listed last year. So it's an interesting, you know, if you look at the two stories, then you can tell that actually the problem is really offshore and in Europe. And in terms of him and his stake, I think he was mostly selling because, you know, he's put these shares as collateral for the money is lended from lots of banks, like Citibank and, you know, Deutsche, whatever banks he uses. And, you know, if the margins call, you know, you have to sell some shares regardless of what the price is and buy. I think that's mostly the reason why he sold. If it were to him, he probably wouldn't have agreed to actually sell. I think, yeah, that's the story there. Yeah,
his hand was forced maybe. Thank you so much, Bright. That was Bright Khumalo. He's a portfolio manager at Vestat, giving his insights on what's happening in global and local markets. After a short break, Nzinga has more business news for you.